today, I'm going to be walking you through a couple key examples from our past years of some good things, some bad things, so you can take those lessons and apply them to your workshop or conference. Because I remember when I first started my conference, I had no idea what we were doing. I just decided, hey, I'm going to run the largest real estate investing conference in the country, and off to the races we went. And one of the last minute things that we realized we needed was security. We actually had hired an event planner of sorts who claimed that she knew all about doing this stuff, and we realized far too late that that was not the case. But we were naive. We didn't know any better. Basically, I think it was 4 weeks before our first conference, we realized that basically nothing had been done. And we basically had to restart everything from scratch. And one of the key missing pieces was security. So very first example I want to walk you through is security when it comes to your speakers and what has to happen. So, it's no secret that we bring in some massive names for my conference. We've brought in Robert Herjavec, Kevin O'Leary, Grant Cardone, Jordan Belfort. We bring in some massive names, and we've got a whole exciting list for future conferences too. But one of the things that comes with that is you need to have solid security. And every speaker is going to have their own requests, but generally speaking, there are things that every speaker must have. So let me break those down and explain why we need them. So what happens is when you bring a high-level speaker in, maybe they're flying on their own jet, maybe they're flying first class, whatever it is. What's going to happen is you're going to meet that person at the airport, and you're going to have a limo for them. And what's going to happen, depending on their preference, depending on their status, generally speaking, you're going to have a security person in the vehicle with them who's going to be taking them right off their plane, right off their jet, get them in the vehicle, and now you're going to take that person in the limo with the security to the hotel. Depending on the person, sometimes the higher, more celebrity status people, they're going to have pseudonyms that they'll use for booking, just so everybody stays safe and you don't have crowds of screaming fans or whatnot at the hotels. So that's all set up in advance. So you'll have different suites set up in the hotel. The person gets whisked from their jet to the hotel. They can decompress. Oftentimes we'll have security on site there as well, just to make sure everything goes well. And then from the hotel, whenever it's time for them to come to the venue, we have security then escort them from the hotel in the limo to the venue. Now, when it comes to the venue, so let me just draw this out real quick. You want to have a couple key things in place. Okay, so let's say we got stage here, we got all the people in the audience. Every venue or most venues should have some type of loading dock or a back door where the speaker can come in without being seen. So I remember our first year, interesting example. So we had a high profile speaker come our first year, and there was a mix up on his driver's part about picking him up and getting him to the venue. His driver thought it was the next day. So anyways, the speaker drove himself to the venue. In terms of security, and like I said, this was our first year. The speaker pulls up in the vehicle. He wasn't planning on driving, so the plans got a little mixed up. But what happened was somebody saw his arrival, and then this individual ended up, putting postcards or advertisements, flyers. They flyered his car basically. Now, no harm, it's not a big deal, but just from an organizer standpoint, you don't want that happening. You don't want the speaker to walk out and be like, oh, well, somebody knows where my car is. You want that all hush hush, and you want them in a separate area. So if we would do that situation differently, or if we could have a redo, we would probably have made sure that the route he took into the venue through all that type of stuff was different. You always want to make sure that nobody can access his vehicle or her vehicle, everything's safe. So if you can pull them into a loading dock, that's ideal. So this is how most venues look. So you'll have the main area, but then you'll have the loading dock where all the big transport trucks. So when we come in with our conference, we've got transport trucks that come in with all the stage and everything. So ideally what happens is the speaker, the limo you have, whatever, they actually drive into the loading dock. They can park their vehicle inside, and then from the loading dock, generally you're going to have access backstage, and you can move the speaker without the audience seeing. You want to make sure that's available, because that way they pull in, everything's secure, nobody sees them exit the vehicle, the security gets out with them. You've already figured all the movements ahead of time, and now you can move them freely in the building without having to deal with people outside, them being accosted for autographs, pictures, that type of stuff. That's perfect, because the last thing you want, if you have a celebrity speaker coming in, you want them in a good frame of mind. You want them pumped, energized, like they know what they have to do. They're probably in their head going over their presentations and everything they want to cover. They're getting in the zone. If you have somebody coming in, they get accosted with all sorts of stuff, it throws them off, and it's probably going to impact what happens on stage because you don't want somebody to get rattled. All right. So in terms of security and how often, how close you want them, you want a security person with them at all times. Now, on that subject, we've had some good experiences and bad experiences with security. We had a couple years ago, we had this one security company provide staff for security. Imagine a large, very large, muscular celebrity that comes in. The security guard was probably a third of his size, built like a twig. And here we have this big person. Ravi's laughing over here. He knows what I'm talking about. It doesn't work. So, obviously there's a type of build that you're looking for security, especially with the people assigned to the talent. There's, you need size, you need strength, you need the look. And so you can't just hire any security company. So what you want to do is if you have those high profile celebrities coming in, you want to interview and meet the people who would most likely be assigned to the talent because you want to make sure, do they look the part? What are they wearing? Are they just wearing those cheap standard security guard uniforms, or are they wearing suits with ties? Are they looking professional? You got to get all of this stuff up front because we learned our lesson. It just was absolutely ridiculous. The people assigned by that one company to our talent, just ridiculous. And if something would have happened, our celebrity would have had to step in to save the security guard, not the other way around. So you really want to get a handle on who's coming in to support your talent, and just make sure they're the right fit. Now, when you're in the venue, you want to make sure, and this is part of your security plan, you want to have all of your pathways and movements choreographed in advance. So what we do with our conference, like I said, we bring in some big people ahead of time. We do a site visit with our security team, and we map out exactly when people are moving from point A to point B, what has to happen to get them there, the exact route we're going to take, how long it takes. There's a lot that goes into this. So we know that we can take celebrity A, if they have to move from spot A to spot B, we know it will take 6 minutes, and we're going to take this exact route, and these are the things that are going to happen. So let's just assume you've got green room over here, and actually the venue we're at right now, it does present some challenges, but we've got it mapped out. So let's say you've got green room right here, but the person has to walk from here to here to get on stage. Okay. What's going to happen is there's probably some hallways here, and you're going to have to figure out, well, who has access to those hallways? Could somebody not involved in the security or your staff gain access to that? If so, as soon as this person, the talent, starts moving, you're going to need other people to secure exits and entrances to that space to make sure it's empty for that movement. You're going to have to know at what time to stop access. You're going to have those staff in place. You're going to have to be able to lock those doors as the person's moving and then reopen them once they're done. So this is why timing is really important. So if we know celebrity A has to be at this spot at 5:15 and it takes 10 minutes for them to get there, well, at 5 o'clock, everything gets shut down. The whole hallway is swept. So that way at 5:05, this person is moving, boom, boom, boom. Everything's like clockwork. Now, the best thing to do is keep everybody out of sight. So the more you can use back hallways, service corridors, service elevators, that's the best because you don't have to worry about attendees or members of the public, interacting with your talent or getting involved. Everything just stays behind closed doors, and you're just worrying about venue staff and then your event staff who you've already vetted. That just makes it so much easier because the last thing you want is to have like crowds of people you're trying to fight through. It doesn't work really well. So I'll give you an example from this past year. So we had a speaker coming in, and she had a bunch of people who loved, and they were really, really excited to see her. Now, one of the challenges we had is we had to move her from a room over here to a room over here. Now, think of like this open lobby area with tons of people. And we had to walk from here all the way over here through a crowd. Not ideal. And this is why I said our venue poses some challenges because there was not a hallway or a back area where we could move from point A to point B. Now, this was not planned. We were actually supposed to be in another room, but then something happened the day of where we had to shift things around. Fair enough. We have to adapt. But now we have the situation where we have to move person from point A to point B through a crowd of fans. Everybody wants a picture. Everybody wants to say something. We have people trying to give gifts, which is amazing. I love that. I love that. But when we are talking about making sure that that person can go from point A to point B in a safe way, also in a way that it keeps them focused and on track, and they're not getting flustered or distracted or anything like that. That's what we have to worry about. So in this case, we actually had a number of security people huddle around, and we were in a bit of a bubble moving through. That was the best thing we could figure out at that time. Best case scenario, we would have had a back hallway, but that wasn't possible with the layout of the venue and getting that person from that specific spot. And like I said, plans had to change the day of, and it was what it was. So, but these are the things, like I'm bringing up these examples because this is what you have to know, and this is what you have to take into consideration when you're moving these celebrity speakers all over the place. Now, the one thing you really, really want to clamp down on is backstage access. So we actually had two attendees gain access to the backstage area because the security people there, it wasn't a good fit. It really wasn't. We were very disappointed. But you want to make sure your backstage is secure. Now, everybody's very well-meaning, right? So some people will have gifts they want to give. Some people will want to offer things. That's awesome, but we just can't have random people coming in backstage because the celebrities there, like, oh well, am I safe? Like all this type of stuff. Plus, it's not a good look. So anytime you have an access point to your backstage, so let's say this is your stage here, and then this is the backstage area where you have your production, your AV, your green room, all that stuff. Any access point that you have, you need security there to stop. Because if not, what's going to happen is somebody, in our case, somebody actually beelined it here and made it through because the security person was over here not paying attention, beelined it through, got access, and was able to offer a gift to one of the celebrities, which is amazing. Like, I love it, but it just can't happen from a security perspective. So you want to lock down all access that you have, just so you don't have those unauthorized people there, because it's about crowd control. And if you don't know everybody who's back there, then there can be some problems. And I just going back to that one example, we had an individual who raised a number of red flags when we had a certain speaker coming into town, and it was a little too weird. And when you have situations like that, and you get a icky feeling about somebody, just the way they're speaking or writing, the frequency, like the substance of the messages, you just don't want anything to happen. So that's why you want to know everybody who's backstage. You want to lock that down so you don't have any unwelcome surprises in your event. Okay, so that's celebrity talent security. Now, I've learned with my event. So we get a lot of people to our big conference. And every year, one of the challenges is, so let's say this is our main floor area. For me, as a person running it, if I have to go from this point to this point, right, and I have to go through the public area, what happens is, my face hurts for a couple of days after my event from doing all the selfies, right? Because you're smiling for thousands of pictures. And so if you have to move, and this is the same thing for your talent moving as well. If you have to go through and you're going to get stopped with a lot of pictures, I love taking them. That's awesome. But the challenge is sometimes I have to move from point A to point B to get somewhere in a certain time frame. Hey, Seth, you must be here at this time. If I go through without any handlers, without any help, what could be a quick 5-minute walk turns into a half-hour trip because everybody wants a picture. I certainly don't want to be rude and say no. So you have to think about and be cognizant of, well, who can support you and help you go through. So, if you're the person running the show, if you're the one everybody's going to want to take a picture with and say hi to and chat with, you need to have a couple of handlers, security people who can assist you and just guide you through. And because that way, you're not the one, turning the person down for a photo. It's, the handler, the security person be like, hey, sorry, Seth has to be here. He'll come back to get you, whatever it is. It's not coming from you. It's coming from somebody else. And you're able to move through that crowd in a more efficient way that doesn't cause any abrasion with the audience, because the truth is you do have to go from point A to point B in a pretty efficient way. All right. So when it comes to security, the main points are, number one, you have to plan ahead. So you have to have plan A and plan B. You have to have your timings figured out. How long does it take you to move from this point to this point? What routes do you take if one route doesn't work? Like the example I gave you, moving the one person through the busy area when things changed up. What's plan B? How long does it take? What exits do you have to close? Access points. How do people access backstage? How do people access different areas? What staff? How many bodies do you need to secure the area completely? If you're taking service elevators, who has the keys for those elevators? It's just like all of these things fall into the security plan. So in terms of your hierarchy and your leadership, certainly your operations director, your show manager has to be aware of all the security plans. And then the different departments, so your speaker wrangler, whoever's dealing with the talent, needs to be aware of that as well. All the different timings, your production manager has to be aware. So that way, if something does happen, everybody knows what plan A is. Everybody knows what plan B is. And then the last thing I do want to mention is communication. Communication devices are crucial, especially for the security team. Now, certain venues pose certain challenges in terms of their materials of construction. So, we've had instances where a certain communication device doesn't work because it's all concrete. So then you have to switch to a different device. You want to make sure that everybody's able to stay in touch. So you've got your war room set up where your main managers are in one spot where everybody knows where to find them. They're running the whole show. They should be easily able to communicate with your head of security and then the different leads on the different security teams. Because if something happens in terms of moving somebody or an access point is blocked off or whatnot, your show manager of the war room needs to know that immediately. But then also the team has to be able to communicate to launch plan B. So it's like, hey, plan A isn't going to work. Let's do plan B. Everybody's on the same page. Production knows, speaker wrangler knows, everybody knows that, hey, now we're on plan B and this is the new timing. So instead of taking 5 minutes to go from this place to this place, now it's going to take 10 because we're doing the second route. Honestly, your speaker, your talent is really going to appreciate it. If they get off their plane and they're presented or if they're greeted by a very professional security person, they're taken straight to the hotel, they're looked after, they're taken to the venue, they're looked after, everybody knows it's running like clockwork. That speaks a lot to the professionalism of your event, which is what you want. You always want a speaker to feel valued and appreciated and feel safe. That's what you want. And that's how you get the best output of them on stage. Think about security. It's not sexy. It's not exciting, but it is 100% necessary. All right. So be secure. You go get somebody good. All right. So I'll see you guys next week on Event Domination. See you then.